Good afternoon. Welcome to our special meeting, 29th of September. We only have one item. We have no speakers. So we'll move right on to our first item of new business, which is the Route 40 Elementary School Solar Power Purchase Agreement. It is an action item. And Mr. Witt, I assume you are the presenter. You're both welcome to come up. We have a couple more chairs. You're welcome to come right up to the table there.
Sorry, we're just getting a new boardroom stage.
Good afternoon. I've brought BAI Group with me to give a brief overview of the solar project and to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, before we ask those questions, as parliamentary procedure, I'll need a recommendation from the superintendent.
Superintendent is looking for her paper. I got it. My recommendation is to approve the 25-year solar power purchase agreement for a contract with BAI Group LLC.
Okay, superintendent has recommended that we take a positive action on the solar power purchase agreement, 25-year contract with BAI Group LLC. Is there a motion? Rodney? Motion by Rodney. Second? Second by Jane. Now we can have discussion and questions.
You want to go through a brief overview of the project?
All right. Good afternoon. Sel Edor with BAI Group. Our pleasure to be here with you. Just going over in a bullet point fashion, just a brief overview as requested of the project. So we are proposing a ground-mounted solar array off-site at the Route 40 Elementary School. And as Superintendent talked about, we are proposing this in a power purchase agreement format with the district. And in a power purchase agreement, and just to refresh everyone's memory, there is no cost out of pocket for the district. BAI owns the responsibility of building, maintaining, operating a solar array off-site, and we use Potomac Edison's virtual net metering regulations to allow that off-site power to be applied to several of your campus locations, if you would, or your district locations. And as stated, it's a 25-year power purchase agreement. The project was successful in securing a grant from the state, and that grant's really allowed us to be, I would call, aggressive on our power purchase offer. And so I think you've had some time, thankfully, to look at it and talk through it, and we're here to address any questions you may have and hopefully get an affirmative action.
Okay, let's open it up for questions.
There we go. The grant you're referring to, is that part of the purchase of a new generator for the school or furnace or whatever?
Yes, it is an MEA grant, and we do plan to electrify, I guess, would be my word for it, Route 40 school. While it's through the same grant source, one can happen without the other.
But it would still be a replacement with an electric.
Yes, we will be replacing the boiler at Route 40 with electric. And we would expect this power purchase agreement, the solar field, to actually feed about half of our electric needs throughout the county. It won't just be for Route 40. It is for the system.
That's correct. Yep.
I got another question.
Sure.
You're estimating 210,000 savings the first year, is that right? So will we get a yearly or a biannual report on what those savings actually are? In other words, are they 300,000 or are they 50,000?
Yeah, so the question is about the savings and if you will have some sort of insight as the project progresses, as the power purchase agreement progresses. Yes, so you will have the ability, and we can provide, frankly, whatever cadence you prefer. What might make sense is an annual sort of report that says, here are the kilowatt hours of solar array produced that you bought. Here's what you would have paid for those kilowatt hours, and then kind of give you a real life, how do you call it, a real life representation of what our projections are based off. In other words, do the same Excel exercise, but with actual production numbers, which I think is what you're referring to.
You think the 210,000 savings is a conservative estimate or a liberal estimate?
So in year one, I would say so. And the reason I would say that is because we're looking at a I'll just use some numbers real quick, 6.7 cent per kilowatt hour power purchase agreement offer, whereas you're purchasing power for 12.29 is what we've estimated, at least at the locations that we're going to virtually aggregate. So if you just look at that math, if we produce the 3,770 megawatt hours of electricity we're projecting, yeah, the math will work itself out. And the other thing to point out is, as part of the review with the superintendent, we actually looked at this array, assuming your utility rates would not increase at all over the 25-year period. And we looked at it in that conservative fashion to give you somewhat of a realistic expectation. Like anything else, there are some risks, right? For us, though, that's why the power purchase agreement is a beautiful relationship. We bear the production risk. So where the system doesn't perform, that's our risk, that we have to go make sure it performs and we maintain it properly, that it does what it's supposed to do.
So these solar panels, you're going to be installing, where are they made?
So as of right now, we would have to get U.S. assembled panels. Originally planned, they would have been made in Vietnam.
Okay, so they're not made in China.
No, China as a whole, it would be very difficult for us to build a project with Chinese-made panels right now.
Line charges is in the contract that we would assume the line charge should Potomac Edison slap us with a line charge. How big is that risk?
Yeah, it's minimal. So I think you're referring to the clause that says any charges related to net metering from Potomac Edison would be your responsibility. And that's standard, in power purchase agreements. We actually looked into that. We talked to Potomac Edison directly. We had our legal counsel look at the state regulation that governs net metering. And as it currently reads, the General Assembly does not allow Potomac Edison to charge you anything for net metering. So it's a zero cost right now. So it would take that type of action at the state level for that to change, right? So it's a statement we place in there because we can't just absolve whatever might be. But as of right this moment, and the other thing to point out is your interconnection application and net energy metering rider, which would govern this, have already been reviewed, and we have an interconnection approval, if you would, from Potomac Edison. Historically, any changes do not go retroactive. In other words, you'd be grandfathered into the existing regulation, meaning there's really no risk.
What is our risk? What's our risk? What risk are we assuming when we do this?
So the general overall.
Any risk, just any risk. Everything has risk.
Now, what I will say is your legal counsel and your administration have done a great job to minimize whatever exposure you have in the agreement. We worked hard on that.
Yeah, we have good negotiators. I
Yes.
think.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's a performance risk, right? So the whole idea here, the reason you're considering this is we're going to drive certain savings to you, right? So your exposure risk in this particular scenario is if the project doesn't perform like we all thought it would. And so then your risk is you end up buying the power you thought you would get at a cheaper rate for a higher rate. We bear the financial risk. So we're sort of you're shifting that risk to us to say, you guys are the solar people. You think you can build a good solar project. You build it, we'll buy the power at this reduced rate. And so that's probably the chief risk, if you would. And again, the other risks, I think we've negotiated those in the agreement that's in front of you right now. And I don't recollect all the different layers there might be from a legal perspective. But the most concerning thing, if I were in your shoes, I'd be thinking, well, what happens if the thing doesn't perform? And our answer to that would be, we would be in a world of hurt because we would have capital outlay without any recovery. So that sort of balances out. We have an incentive to make sure it performs, financial incentive directly.
Sure. Other questions?
I can't see, yeah, okay, I'm good. On projects like this, I'm sure you look at the climatic, how often the sun shines and what you're going to be able to generate from solar power in this climate in Garrett County, right? And there's a lot of solar arrays going up over the county, so I'm sure that calculation's been done by somebody. But have you looked at those?
We have, yeah. So our projections for the output of the array are actually based on locational weather data. Specifically, there's all kinds of software products out there. You put a pin, you say, I'm putting a solar array here. You describe what kind of array it is, how you're going to construct it. You tell it what equipment you're using, what kind of panels, what kind of inverters, how long is your line, and it takes that data, uses, I think it's 15 or 20 years worth of historic weather data for that location, or the nearest weather station to that location, and it tells us what we can expect. So that's how we come up with the performance projections.
Other questions? Anyone? Okay, we have a motion on the floor to accept the superintendent's recommendation with with the agreement of a solar power purchase given to us by BAI Group LLC. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. And I'm going to be an aye, and the reason I want to be an aye is because we've asked 3 people to represent us and dig into this for a long time, and I can't think of how we lose if I can't come up with a reason. Then I am an aye. So it is a 3-2 vote.
Thank you. Appreciate the partnership.
Sure. Sure. No, please do. Well, probably going to have to wait for a while because now we're waiting on the next group. It doesn't start till 4. We probably could get that out of the way. I'll come back.
You'd have to read your statement.
Yeah, I'll read the
Let's just say
statement.
we're coming back.
We'll come back
Or-
at 4. Yeah, let's do that. We'll leave you guys here, and the 5 of us will go to executive. We'll go do our executive. Yes. Yeah, we're going to do it afterwards, so now we can do it before. Well, we won't have you with us, but that's okay. We'll catch you up. Okay. We're holding today's meeting at Dinner Road Educational Complex. The board will be going into executive session pending approval until 4 p.m. Under Section 3-305B of the General Provisions Article of Maryland Annotated Code, there is one reason for the board to go into closed session this evening. To discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals, Specifically, the topic will be 3-305B1, which includes superintendent search. The reason this topic will be discussed in closed session instead of open session is as follows. The personnel topic pursuant to 3-305B1 disclosed above will be considered in closed session rather than open session because they include a discussion of specific employees, which is a confidential employment matter. Hearing those things, is there any objection of going into executive session? Is there a motion to do so? So moved by Rodney. Second by Sadie.
Dawn.
By Dawn, I'm sorry, Dawn. I'm sorry, I called you Rodney, that's. So we, with a motion, second, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And we are in executive. Good afternoon. Welcome to our special board meeting for the 29th of September. We had a couple of items. The first one we have finished earlier, and then we went to executive session, and now we're back for the remainder of our public session, which is the FY 2025 financial statement and results of the financial audit. And that will be presented tonight by Scott Felty, our Director of Finance. So if you want to bring whomever and everybody that you need, feel free to bring them up. Ashley, would you like to make the introductions? We should know, we see you guys once a year, but not the same time every year.
Yes, tonight we have Mr. Lucas with us tonight, and also Mr. Stickle from the Road Heaver Group.
Okay, Ashley, it's all yours.
Okay. So I'm here today to present the 2025 annual financial report as of 6:30 of 25. Mr. Lucas and Mr. Stickle from the Road Heaver Group will present the results of the audit engagement. Every year, the state of Maryland requires each LEA to publish a set of complete financial statements in accordance with the generally accepted accounting principles and the generally accepted auditing standards. These financials must be audited by an outside firm, by an individual with a CPA license, and this year, as well as the previous years, the auditing firm was the Road Heaver Group. Finance published this report with respect to financial position, activities, and balances for the year ending 6/30, as well as pursuant to Education Code 5109 of the Annotated Code of Maryland. As management, I am certifying that the financial statements provide fair representation as they are complete, reliable, and free of any material misstatements due to proper misstatement due to proper internal controls. One of the things that I just want to highlight really quickly was on page 25, the budget to actual, current expense fund, unrestricted. I did just want to note that there was a small increase in fund balance, and this will allow the needed flexibility to fund the Broadford project. The auditor report was issued by the independent audit firm Road Heaver Group, and the results can be found in front of your financial statements clipped to the front page. Typically, the annual financial report and the single audit are issued at the same time. But however, due to the federal government not releasing a final draft of the federal audit supplement, it will be issued at a later date. It is due to MSDE by December 31st, and I think Dylan will be speaking more about the single audit. I would like to thank the Finance Department, the Food Nutrition Department, and the Road Heaver Group for all of the hard work and dedication to the audit. There were many late nights, weekends spent trying to make sure that the financials and the audit was completed on time. It is a very tight time frame, and without a team effort, it could not get completed. In addition, I would like to thank Dr. McCartney. I would like to thank the board for the fiscal management for the year. And at this time, I will be turning it over to Mr. Stickle.
Afternoon. First off, I just want to echo what Ashley said. I want to thank her and her staff because issuing an audit within 90 days after the end of the fiscal year is no joke. It's a lot of work, and every year there's more standards. It's not like they're saying, well, we're going to take some standards away and make it easier for you. That's not the way it works. And this year was no exception, so we really do appreciate all the help. This man to my left did most of the work. And he had many late nights. I had some. So I just want to draw your attention to the first letter. Believe it or not, this is like a 70-page report, and technically there's only 2 letters in here that are ours. The rest of it is the boards of ed. We help them get the notes ready and everything like that, but the only actual thing that's ours is the report. And that would be the first, I'd say, after the cover page, you're going to see independent auditor's report. And I'm going to read this whole thing. No, I'm just kidding. No, this is boilerplate language, essentially. And it's us giving an opinion on the financial statements, the various opinion units that the Board of Education has. And the good thing is it's unmodified, which is the best thing you can have. You can get an unmodified, a modified, an adverse, and a disclaimer. And you can tell by what they're called what's better to get. So they did receive an unmodified opinion, as in prior years. And it's a standard opinion. The only thing I want to draw your attention to is on the first page, you're going to see a paragraph that says emphasis of the matter. And that relates to a change in accounting principle. So and you're going to see this referred to throughout the report because it's a new accounting standard that the Government Accounting Standards Board issued, GASB 101, compensated absences. And this did have a material effect on your financial statements, not at the fund level where your budgets are done, but you've got your fund level and your government-wide level, which is where all your long-term liabilities, all your capital assets are. And this had a material effect on your long-term liabilities. Somewhere in the tune, it was required to be restated retroactively, so we had to restate your prior year. So you hired an actuary, you had a 6/30/24 report, 6/30/25 report. It had an effect of round about $7 million of an additional liability on your financial statements. So that was a pretty significant matter, so that's why we have an emphasis of the matter in the audit report. And you can see that it'll make reference to Note 4 in the financial statements, and if you want to look at that, you can kind of see the effect that it had. It's on page 45. And it was a restatement of decreasing your net position by $7,082,449. So other than that, the opinion is pretty standard. The other report that we issue in conjunction with the financial audit is this report that's just separate that you should all have. Independent auditors report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance and other matters based on audited financial statements. What this is as we go through the course of the audit, we're looking for material misstatements. And, in doing that, we're analyzing controls and we're looking at certain compliance issues like compliance with debt, or in this case, the lease agreement. And there's not a lot of material compliance issues that, governments really have that would affect their financial statements. But mainly internal control. We're looking at segregation of duties, and we look at the computer controls related to accounting, things like that. And again, no findings were found, no significant deficiencies, no material weaknesses. So essentially a clean report on that. The last report that we did, and this is just a letter that we're required to give to you all, those charged with governance. And again, this is required by standards, pretty boilerplate language, but it kind of gives you an idea of the significant estimates that we look at, because as auditors, when you guys are preparing the financial statements, there's certain estimates that are made that we have to say, okay, did they look at this correctly? The main one is OPEB. And fortunately, because that's a pretty big number that's on your financial statements, it's huge. So what we do, you've got actuaries, and actuaries are pretty smart, I've learned. So we look at the assumptions that they're making to make sure that they're, correct, relevant. We look at the discount rate. There is auditing that we do on that, and we evaluate that estimate along with other estimates. So the other estimate that we have listed, the big one was the new one, accrued compensated absences on the second page. That is the one that you guys just implemented, and you did have an actuarial evaluation for that. I can tell you I spent a solid week on that myself because it's a new number on the financial statements. It's a new statement. So, there's a lot of people interpreting the statement and things like that. So we really drilled down to the numbers that the board gave to the actuaries to make sure that they were accurate. We tested it, and we didn't have any problems with that. And the other one is accrued compensation, just because there is an estimate for payroll for the different tenured employees on the last payroll, but we didn't have any problems with that. So the only other thing that we had here listed is we're required to tell you what adjustments we did, and this is at the fund level. So this isn't the government-wide with the debt and everything. This is, we did some entries on the on-behalf payments. So the state makes payments on behalf of the teacher's retirement fund. And it's like, I think it was $3.3 million. It's not like a check that you get in here. It's just basically saying, well, this is how much that we're paying for that liability. So obviously the board doesn't budget it. So, but we have to record the adjustment on the financial statements. And then if you look at the budget, you can see after we record it, we take it back out so it doesn't skew your budget. So that's one adjustment. We had some leases that were recognized this year, and there's a certain method of accounting that we do that where, again, it's a non-cash transaction where you kind of show the value of the leases coming in as revenue and you show it as capital outlay. And again, if you look at the budget, we back that back out so it didn't mess up your budget. And the last one is just the school construction fund and the current expense fund. At the end of the year, that school construction fund needs to zero out. So after all the activity, we do an adjustment that zeroes it out. Essentially, we had some other adjustments, but those were the only adjustments that were material. And what we do with those is we give them to Ashley, and they agree to make the adjustments, and then going forward next year, all of our fund balances are lined up, and we go forward from there. So other than that, that's about everything that was non-standard in the audit. And does anybody have any questions?
Yes.
Thank you for the report. My understanding is that OPEB liability is something on the order of $30 million.
Yeah. I think it's on page, note 12, 57, page 57.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 30,520,000.
And my understanding from dealing with OPEB liability at the college is that we're pretty much stuck with the actuarial adjustment or actuarial evaluation that's present because we're not actually funding the OPEB liability. We were just letting it accrue.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a couple of things that go into that because if you look on page 57 below, you see the rate that they're using, the discount, it's 4.81%. That's a lower rate than you would typically discount the liability because you're not funding the plan.
Yeah.
So in order to get a higher discount rate, you would have to be able to show that your net position is enough to pay your benefits over the course of the plan. And I think that's what the college is doing. So that discount rate has a big effect on it, as well as the money that's not going in there.
Right. So it's a certain amount of fraudulent activity promising this benefit and not funding it.
Well, I know, but there's no requirement under either 68 or 75.
You're not required under GASB to fund it.
Yeah.
But still, we're promising people we're going to pay them something, and we're not setting aside the money to actually pay for it.
It looks like what the BOE's putting is like they're just paying the benefits due as they come, the pay as you go.
Yeah,
the normal cost, whatever it costs to run the plan for a year is what you're paying.
We're just kicking the can down the road. And if we were to actually pay attention to it as a liability like any private business would have to, we'd be able to get a better discount rate, which would actually reduce the liability.
Yeah. That's true. If
So
you would
instead
have to
of
work
being-
with your actuary on that because they would have to do the table that shows that you've got enough in your fiduciary fund to pay your benefits.
Right, but if we were actually addressing it, we'd be able to use a different actuarial rate.
Yes, if it was funded.
Okay, so why aren't we doing that?
Don't know. I'm just an auditor. I mean, we take what the actuarial evaluation says.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we audit the assumptions. And like we would, if they weren't using the lower rate, we would probably have to take exception to it because they're required to use a 20-year bond rate that's lower. And if you look on page 57, you can see if it went up 1%, just 1%, the liability would go down $3 million. So, I mean, as far as our responsibility though, A, there's no funding requirement under there, so that's not an audit issue. And B, I mean, as far as we just look at whether their assumptions are valid, you know, and reasonable when they were.
Right, your responsibility is just to bring it up to the board and have the board and the school district address it or not address it as they choose.
Right.
Yes, I mean, if that is something that the board would wish to fund in the fiscal 27 budget, we can look at that going forward.
I forget, it's been a couple, 3 years ago, we made a large lump sum contribution to OPED. I can't remember what year it was. A couple, 3 years ago, we put several $100,000 in there, up and above and beyond what we were paying.
Well, it looks like and I might be wrong and stand to be corrected by the auditors, but it looks like there's only $2 or $3 million in the OPEB trust fund. And with a $30 million liability, I don't think $300,000 contribution would be, well, I wouldn't mind having it, but, you know, I don't think that's significant in addressing a $30 million liability. But it'd be better than nothing because it'd allow us to use, if we were doing it on a regular basis, it'd allow us to use a different discount rate, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, that's something you should really talk to your actuary about because they can establish a contribution that would make the OPEB fund sound if you contribute over and above what the normal cost is. I mean, but you would want to probably work with them to establish that. And probably right now there is no funding policy for the OPEB plan. Like usually there's like funding policies dictated by the board or something that you follow. And I've seen people adopt a funding policy that we're going to put in enough extra to make sure that we get the higher interest rate. That can be a funding policy.
Well, doing something to address it right now would be better than nothing. One of the guys I worked with for a long time, favorite saying was even a bad plan's better than no plan.
Yeah, I think we have had, in my 10 years, we've had this discussion a lot as to how much should we be giving and shouldn't we be giving every year to the plan. But we've been very inconsistent as a board for the last 10 years. I can only remember twice, I think, that we've made a contribution above and beyond. Part of that is driven by the amount of money that we have to operate with. Our operation costs zero us out in terms of having extra money, unless we make the decision to use some of that money. But again, I think as you said, it's a decision, as Ashley said, in our FY27 budget, those are decisions that we can make as a board. We want to put X amount of money.
You know, if this were a private business and you had a 401k plan and you weren't contributing to it, you'd be hauled off to jail by the feds. So I don't quite understand how as a board we can have a promise to employees and future employees that we're going to pay this benefit and we don't contribute to it. I
guess we're taking the lead from the state, who can not do it either.
Well, I really don't want to have the state's budget problems either.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where we have gone. If the state's not going to fund it, it doesn't. I mean, I understand we all totally agree with wanting, we should be doing it, but to come up with the $30 million is a pipe dream at the moment.
Well, we've allowed it to accumulate by ignoring it as opposed to addressing it. But I'll go back to my original position. Even addressing it in some fashion is better than not addressing it.
Totally agree. I think we all agree with that.
May I say something?
Sure, sure.
Just very quickly. I think Mrs. Glaudfeldy said, as we develop our budget for next year, we'll look at that and see if we can't figure out a way to set more money. And I think what I'm hearing, Mr. Moran, is right now we have a trust fund with about 2.3 million. And we're paying as we go for the OPEB. But if we, just as we did at a much smaller scale for the turf field, we've earmarked some money to start putting aside so that if, when we need to address a new turf field, we have some money earmarked for that. So what I can tell you, we'll try to do as we're developing the budget for next year, see if we can look at some of our funds and begin to put some money towards the OPEB and possibly develop some sort of policy that would guide future boards.
Yeah, I think that's the missing link. I think we do need to develop a policy
Yeah.
that kind of holds us to a position. We know every year that's going to be our position. So I think it's worthwhile.
And, you know, with all due respect, Dr. McCartney, I think there's a substantial difference between replacing a turf field and promising employees you're going to pay for their health insurance.
I'm sorry, Mr. Moran. That's the comparison that came to mind. Certainly, turf fields costing $600,000 is very different than what we're talking about per employees. But a year ago, we had not thought about putting money away for the turf fields. So recognizing that as a board, we are responsible for current expense and future expense, what I'm offering is that we will look at it and try, number one, to develop a policy procedure that is appropriate for this board when we're working in an environment in which we very many times since I've been here, balancing the operating budget each year has been a challenge. But we'll see what we can do, and we'll try to offer something as we go forward.
And what's the process for developing a policy?
I will work with Mrs. Glodfeldy. We will look at developing a policy procedure. We'll take it to our policy procedure committee, and it'll come to the board.
Oh, thank you.
Any other questions anyone has? Mr. Stickle? Okay, Ashley. What's next?
Good afternoon. Just want to thank Ashley and her team again this year. You know, we shared a lot of late nights. That's no doubt at all. So it takes an army to get this thing done in 3 months. So, you know, thank her first. Second, with the single audit, we normally would issue that at the same time, and that has been standard in the past. The current issue this year is that the Office of Management and Budget, who controls these single audits, did not release our audit guide until, like, what, 2 weeks ago? We got a draft, but we're not legally allowed to issue a single audit without a completed compliance supplement. So that is the issue that we're facing currently. And just to end the point that we, as long as they release that, we will have it done by the December 31st deadline.
I assume we'll need, the single audit has to have our approval as well.
Yes.
So we would have to, if it would be beneficial to us to try to have it done by the December board meeting. So we don't have to have another board meeting like this to adopt the single audit.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah, okay. Christmas is around the corner, so we'd like to.
And I want to thank you all for the hard work. I think this is the first year you've had to live through the audit by yourself, Ashley. Well,
Yes, I've helped for many years, but this was the first year by myself.
very well done. Good job. Thank you.
Yeah, on behalf of all of us, because not only was it the changes, but also wrapping up all of the COVID monies that we were zeroing out, making sure that we spent every dime that we could. On behalf of all of us, as Don said, we're very proud of the job that you and your staff are doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Please thank them for us.
Yeah, I will be sure to thank the entire finance team. Thank you.
And thank you to the Road Heaver Group for all your support as well.
Okay, that being said, are there any other questions? Okay, I will take a motion to adopt, I guess we're adopting the audit less the single audit. Okay. So moved by Don? Seconded by Rodney. Discussion, questions? All those in favor of adopting the audit as presented tonight, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. And it is adopted. And once again, thank you so very much for your help and cooperation and late nights.
Let me add my thanks to that too. Greatly appreciate it.
All right, unless there is anything else for the order, anybody have anything else to add?
No, sir.
No, sir. I will take a motion to adjourn. So moved by Don,
Second that.
second by Jane. All those in favor of adjourning in public session, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And we are adjourned.
Ooh.